Welcome to International Securities Exchange's podcast series. Facilitated by renowned educators, ISE podcasts are intended to teach beginning as well as seasoned investors the ins and outs of trading. To find an updated list of podcasts, please visit www.ise.com/podcasts. Please be sure to listen to our important message following this episode regarding the risks of investing in exchange-traded options.
Welcome, everyone. This is Steve Meisinger, your host for the ISE webinar series. Today, we'll be talking about contrarian trading versus trend trading. We have Raghee Horner with us, and Raghee is an expert in not only contrarian trading, but also trend trading. She's been trading the markets for many, many years, and we'll learn a lot about what she looks at the market, so some great insight into how she views the markets. And I really look forward to her presentation. I've seen her in Vegas. She's a great speaker, so I just want to introduce Raghee Horner. Hi, Raghee. How are you?
Good, Steve. How are you doing?
Doing great. I just want to say thanks again for joining us.
Oh, you kidding me? I love this. Thanks so much. You guys, I love talking to the crowd here about options. I don't get to talk enough about them, and I'm really stoked because the timing is perfect right now.
Isn't it? I mean, Raghee and I saw each other just a couple weeks ago, and the markets were, I guess, a bit weak, the equity markets. But the FX market, the U.S. dollar is pretty strong, and now the equity markets have really sold off, as we all know. But the U.S. dollar is really strong. So without further ado, I want to, again, introduce Raghee Horner. And Raghee will be talking about how she views the markets. Thanks again, Raghee.
Thank you. So how's everyone doing? I'm going to get my desktop shared here with you all in just a brief moment, but really want to make sure that you guys can, this is going to be a talk not just about options, but understanding when options are ideally to be used, because it's a very powerful vehicle that, if misused, can be the same as just not knowing when to trade properly. And I think everything comes back to understanding price action. Everything comes back to understanding where you want to position yourself in the market. And I think more so when you focus on what an option can do for you, we're going to really hone in on that. A couple things I want to make sure that you guys know is, one, how to reach me if you have a question. Inevitably, at some point, you will. So let me go ahead and put that out there right now, and I'll give you my email. This is my personal email, and that's my Yahoo address, which is RagheeHorner@yahoo.com. Okay, you can send questions about options, and we're going to talk about market cycles and things like that here today. For those of you that have never seen me speak or been to an ISE presentation before, I really encourage everyone, because I've done this many times myself, utilize the archives here at the site. This site is a tremendous resource, and I like to make sure I mention that, because there are such great tools here at the ISE site, and one of them is, I'm going to roll this into my screen view here before I turn my desktop on here, is the ISE website itself. I know that I utilize my e-signal a lot when I'm pulling up charts, but when I'm looking for certain things about volatility and wanting to pull up just all sorts of information about the puts and calls on whatever the symbols I am looking at, I usually find myself back at the ISE site. So let's go ahead without further ado and get this desktop shared. So just bear with me one moment while I go ahead and do that. Okay. So let me go ahead and confirm with everybody that we've got the desktop shared here so you guys can see it. Yes?
I see a chart. Yep, I see the ISE site, and I saw your chart.
Okay, fantastic.
Looks good.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Steve. All right, so I really recommend everyone take a look at the ISE website. Like I said, there's tremendous resources here, not only the past webinar archives, but I love this page right here. I mean, I know that when I'm looking to price an option and doing some shopping, my husband's an avid user of the ISE options. That he ends up here too. So this is a popular website here in my trading office, and it's definitely a family thing. The chart I have up right now is the dollar index, and we're going to talk a little bit about that because this is a really great time to be talking about options, because if you think about what an option is, and again, if anyone has any particular questions, by all means, go ahead and ask. Go ahead and type them in. That's why I'm here. Don't be shy. What I like to make sure everybody understands is when we're taking a look at options, we're looking at a three-dimensional vehicle, and it's that three-dimensional vehicle, specifically the volatility aspect, that makes trading options so powerful. Now, I'm not going to talk about more complicated positions. There are, however, great resources at the site that you can get into, but I think a lot of times the error that traders make when they get into options is that they don't understand the most basic elements of what they're getting into, and inevitably they find themselves frustrated when they're trying to put on some of the more complicated options positions. So to me, the first thing I would encourage anyone to do is go ahead and get your hands dirty, if you will. Go ahead and buy a put, buy a call, understand what type of market environment you're in. And we're going to talk specifically about those strategies, but I encourage you to use these things, options specifically, in a way that will allow you to create a foundation of understanding how the option behaves against the underlying market cycle of the Forex pairs you're watching. So I'm going to start off with a look at the dollar, because this is where I'm going to begin most of my analysis, which is to understand how the dollar is trading in relation to the pairs that I'm watching. Okay, so this is a 15-minute chart of the dollar. Let's go ahead and step out to a daily, and this is simply e-signal charting. You can use whatever charting you'd like. This is just what I use for my Forex trading, and of course, it's what I use for my options trading as well, just for analysis, okay? Whom you execute your trades through, completely up to you. This is just a charting and data platform. So once I get an idea of what the dollar's been doing, and we know what's happening to the dollar, Steve mentioned at the top of our the presentation that the dollar's been very strong. Before we get into any kind of position, though, in any kind of Forex pair, whether it be the underlying spot or the option, it's very important that we get an idea of what the volatility is like, because that's going to be an element that's going to affect the price of the option we're buying. And in my mind, in the most basic sense, I want to buy an option when the volatility is low. I want to be able to capitalize on profiting from that option when the volatility increases. Now, I'm not talking about hedging. I'm not talking about anything other than speculating via an option, because when you think about the protection you get with an option, when you talk about your risk, your maximum risk with an option versus other types of vehicles, this is where a lot of people say, hey, you know, especially in this kind of environment, maybe I am better off with this option because I'm going to be able to take advantage of the volatility, which we know is just a daily thing, whether it's up, down, whatever. We're not dealing with flatlining markets at all, are we? And I think this dollar index is certainly showing you that. But what's happening with the dollar index, and why do I think we're going to be looking at possibly a ceiling here in the dollar? And we'll talk specifically about what type of strategies I'm going to employ with my FX options in light of that. So you take a look here, but just going back to the 11th of September, you can see this doji on the dollar index. Not a lot of people look at the dollar index when they're options trading, and I think that's a huge mistake, because understanding the underlying movement of the dollar will give you especially good understanding of what's happening with your dollar correlated majors. Now, how do we capitalize on that? I'm going to be looking at, for the euro, US dollar, I'm going to be looking at the EUI. I'm going to be looking at, for the British pound US dollar, the BPX. For the Swissy, I'll be looking at the SFX. These are the symbols that you can pull up for the ISE FX options. Finally, for the dollar yen, I'm going to be looking at the YUK. Those four pairs and the US dollar index have a tremendous amount of correlation.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. To find more podcasts on options, stocks, alternative markets, and market data, please visit www.ise.com/podcasts.